Welcome to my homestead. Vickie's Country Home is doing a Why Do I Blank collaboration, and she's asked a few of us to join in. The Why Do I Blank collaboration has to do with you telling a story about something that is close to your heart and something that you just love to do. So Miss Vickie from Vickie's Country Home has asked myself and 4 other channels to join in on this collaboration. Miss Katie from Heritage Ways, Tressa from Tressa Stayed Home Life, Tina from Teasers Pleasers, and Miss Mary from Mary's Nest. Get you a cup of coffee and sit down, and let's tell stories about why we do what we do and the things that we love so much. Why do we homestead? Why do we homestead?
Well, we started out our life homesteading. I did when I was from a child up, and you started come up here to your grandparents when you was 13 out of Pasadena, and they homesteaded. So it was a necessity. It wasn't just a way of life. It's something you had to do. A lot of people worked factories. We did too in town, and it was some extra money for the life that you was living. The pay wasn't that great, so you still had to provide other ways, like homesteading with cattle and hogs and gardening, and we didn't have a lot, but we had a lot of things in other ways.
Yeah, we was rich in a lot of ways because we had food and shelter and clothes. So, in fact, growing up at Grandma and Grandpa's, and back then, so many people around us, everybody were homesteaders. So you didn't know really the difference, I don't think. I mean, I didn't think we were poor, and I'm not saying homesteaders are poor, but we didn't have a lot of money.
We always had food.
We always had what we needed, and we thought life was great. So, we didn't know no different. I think it's in our biological genes too, because I think even at a young age, I'd come up here to the farm with Grandma and Grandpa from Texas, and I spent most of my time outside. I've got pictures of me at 4 years old out in the garden, picking beans, and I just loved being outside, and I loved the whole process, even as a little child, of what they were doing. They were homesteading, so I think I always knew it was there. And then when I finally moved up here permanently to live with my grandparents on the farm, it was just, I just don't know any difference. So we both grew up on homesteads, and our families and neighbors, and that's just all we know, really.
Well, if you lived out, you was, I don't remember, nearly 20 miles from town, and I was 10 miles from town at that time, in between two towns. And everybody that lived away out from the city had, and there were people in the city that grew some gardens too, that had moved in to try, from the country, try to run in spells. They'd move in and move out. And in our time, in our young time, in the older time, my mother moved to houses that there really wasn't even a thing such as rent houses back then. If somebody, they would throw up, I guess you could call it a house. It was
Little shanties.
a little shanty, and if somebody moved out of it and somebody in the area needed it, they would just move in it.
People would have to move out and move on, so the next person that needed a place to live, they just move in it.
If somebody in the area there needed a place to go. My mom's talked about that many times.
My grandmother, when I moved up here, she was still cooking on a wood cook stove at that point with no air conditioning. I mean, it was summer, winter, it didn't matter. She didn't have a gas cook stove or electric or anything. And we had an outhouse. We didn't have a bathroom. So, but at some point, Grandpa did put in a bathroom for us. So we thought we was high stepping then when you got a bathroom. And we took our baths down at the creek. Our shampoo and soap stayed down at the creek because we knew every day that's where we'd be taking our baths and washing our hair.
In summertime, we have a river here called 11 Point River at that time, and we were just a few miles from it where I grew up, and that's where we would spend in the summertime. Any time that we had an opportunity to be down there, we were there. And usually on a weekend, after, it depended on the time of year, what was going on, but we would spend a lot of time there, take our baths there. You go down there and get cooled off before dark, and then it was just getting your body temperature down in that cool
Well, that's
river.
where I met you. It was out down the river.
That's where we met, was at the river.
Yeah, because that's just where the kids went. You know, we didn't go running around. We didn't do a lot of stuff. We went to the river, and that's where everybody hung out and, you know, had fun. But
It was a big community hole. It was,
yeah,
everybody in miles around come there, and we had swings and stuff off the bank. And
my grandma and grandpa, they raised cattle and hogs, of course chickens, and we raised tame rabbits to eat. So,
that sounds like my homestead
yeah.
when I was growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it was just part of life. And my biological family, my mother's side, they were sharecroppers down in Texas, and hardworking people.
Your grandpa spent many years working construction in Texas, didn't he?
Yeah, before they come up here and bought the big
Bought a farm.
homestead, yeah.
Yep.
And of course, they grew up themselves before they, you know, as homesteaders. But just the whole process of homesteading, we learned from example from parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, neighbors. It don't matter.
Great-grandparent.
Everybody in the community were homesteaders. So that's just how we grew up.
Just about, I don't know, it's 8 miles by gravel if you went through here to where my great-grandpa lived from where we are right now. The way the crow flies, it probably ain't 6 miles across the hollers and hills, but
My grandma,
What?
she probably didn't go to town maybe twice a month.
my great-grandpa's place was a one-room, basically a one-room. It was, well, it wasn't all log cabin, but a lot of it was, and they built onto it a little bit later, where they had a kitchen and the bedroom and living room, and I guess part of the dining room for a long time was all under one room.
Yeah, that's how people lived.
I can
back
remember
then.
going there and him sitting in a corner in a chair, and just off to the side of him was the bed that he slept in at night. And part of that old place still standing.
Yeah. But my grandmother, she made everything from scratch, and she canned, most everything in the garden. So there wasn't any processed food in that house, I can tell you, as far as like going to the store and buying canned goods and stuff, because she put most stuff up. We raised a lot of hogs, and Grandpa did process some of his own hogs, cattle, and if you was wanting a chicken, you didn't have one, and you had plenty out there, you'd go get you a chicken. And
I can remember when we first started, things were tough.
Yeah.
Our first little place we had, and I remember going out and killing a chicken for supper because we didn't have nothing else really much to eat that night.
We had a lot of squirrel.
Squirrel and venison, fish, a lot of fish.
And our kids remember that. They grew up on a homestead. And all 4 of my children have very, very good work ethics. Because, kids growing up on a homestead, they have chores and they have responsibilities, and it's good for them. And I want my grandkids to grow up that way too. But Danny's mom, She was a big influence on me too, because his daddy would have to work off, to make ends meet, and she took care of the homestead. She took care of 7 kids and a big garden, and plus had a part-time job a lot of the times herself. She'd work at a little grocery store down the road.
We even had truck patches back, and all my brothers and sisters, we grew cucumbers, and there was a pickle factory up in the edge of Missouri, I believe is where we hauled them at that time, and we had a few acres of cucumbers, and I never got more sick and tired of picking cucumbers in my life.
I bet you did. Is that why you don't eat very many pickles now?
I don't eat, I do, but I just, it was just, I was smaller. I didn't get in it as much as my brothers and sisters did at that time. But
do you remember riding a cotton sack? Your mama
yes.
putting you on there and going picking cotton?
Yes. Well, I say I remember it. I don't know. I was pretty small, but she tells me that I rode on her cotton sack.
It's just a way of life for us, and we love it, and we wouldn't change it for nothing. I hope more people, as time goes on, get into it more. It does humble you, that's for sure. But
we're not going to leave this world with anything anyway.
No. And
we can't take it with us.
We had the farm, and we raised the kids over there on a bigger farm with cattle and whatever it took for us to homestead. And how many years ago? 5 years ago, we moved here, right? We bought this place. We scaled down, and
it'll be 4 years this
I know, but we sold the place.
Oh.
But we built a small cabin right in the middle of the woods, and 20 acres. We don't have any pasture land, so we don't have cattle right now. But when we retire, we plan on probably maybe getting a few hogs, going back to that, and maybe even, who knows, a milk cow again. Who knows? We do have our chickens, though, and we wouldn't be without our chickens. We love our fresh eggs.
We got a son that he's been butchering his own hogs, and we've been getting chickens. He's been raising chickens. We've been getting them from him as far as the meat chickens go.
And we raise a lot of our vegetables, and I can a lot, and I enjoy it. And I do a lot of fermenting, and I do dehydrating. I put up a lot of herbs, and if you go in my kitchen right now, you just won't hardly see a canned good from the grocery store. And that's just a part of homesteading. When you can do all that, that's just part of it.
And it's better.
And it's better for you.
Better for you.
So I believe that homesteaders are pretty healthy people too. You're active, you eat good, and we have so many stories we could tell, but we just don't have enough time, do we?
No,
this would be an hour more long to tell our story of our life in homesteading.
It'd probably take a year, wouldn't
it? It probably would. But more or less, it's how we were raised, and it's what we love. And there's so many aspects that go with homesteading. But we've always done it and always will.
It's a fall crisp day today. I hear geese flying over. They're going south.
Oh, I heard a plane.
Well, I heard the plane too. I just heard some geese. And then our leaves are they really changed this week. They really are getting different colors, and it's beautiful out here today. And I'm fixing to go fishing, and
yeah, y'all hear that? He's going to go fishing. I'm fixing to go in there and make popcorn balls, because it's fixing to be Halloween, and I know that the grandkids will be coming over, and I'm not buying candy this year. I'm going to make popcorn balls for them.
Yeah, well,
even the big kids are wanting popcorn balls. So
we're fortunate. We have a freezer full of venison and garden
and fish. We still have fish in there, but you gotta get some more.
But the fish are getting low, so I need to go get some more fish. I really do.
We eat a lot of what we put up. We just don't eat a lot of processed food.
We don't eat out a lot either.
No.
We do occasionally.
And that's a part of homesteading. That's just part of it.
I'd rather eat here at home anytime.
It'd be nice when I got off work somebody had my supper cooked though.
Well,
But that maid, she just don't show up every day for some
you
reason.
had Miss Vickie cook for us one night.
Oh. You reckon she'd come back?
I think
We
she
should
would.
have just kept her.
Kept her, yeah. I don't think her husband,
And he'd been after her.
he'd been after
Yes, but we should have kept her. She thought she would stay another week.
her. I don't think she wanted to go. I mean, she was ready to go home, but she didn't want to leave either.
No, I didn't want her to either. But anyways, to sum it up, the reason we homestead because we love it and because it's always been a way of life for us. The whole process of it.
I wouldn't change it for nothing.
I want to thank Miss Vickie for, asking me to be in this collaboration because I've enjoyed it. And like I said, I could sit here and tell all kinds of stories of our past and it would go on and on and on.
Tell them the story about when we first married. About she was still in school when we married, and I had to sign a report card.
Yes, I was under 18, still in school, married, and he had to sign my report cards.
Yeah, and that first winter, we froze to death. An old house had been moved in, and I worked on had been moved in there at that particular spot up by a creek called Wells Creek, and it had no insulation, none. And
We would get dressed under the covers
you would, yeah.
with our breath. You could see our breath.
We had a wood stove, and I guarantee you would burn on one side and freeze on the other. It'd beat anything I've ever seen.
We were young homesteaders, but we was in love, so we knew we'd make it.
Well, we made it just fine. I worked the rent out on the little house on the farm there, and I worked the factory in town, and you were going to school, and
I ended up going to work.
then I got laid off and at the factory. So I cut wood and worked odd jobs and run a trap line.
That's one thing you can say about most homesteaders. You can get down and, things can happen because from one day to the next, you never know what can happen. That's why you always need to be prepared.
Absolutely.
So when you're homesteading, most homesteaders are prepared for what can happen in the future. And one of them was that you did get laid off. And there was a time when he was working on the towboats. He'd be gone 30 days at a time. And he hurt his back. He was down for a year. We had 4 little babies, and we didn't know what was going to do because I was at home with the kids. And if it wouldn't have been for his grandparents and mom and dad who homesteaded and had, food put up and, just homesteaders take care of homesteaders. And
They fed us.
They fed us. They kept us going. So we've all hit rock bottom at some time and need that help. And if you're a homesteader, you're going to survive. That's the truth, ain't it?
Absolutely.
You're always going to make it because you're always prepared somehow.
If you have neighbors and friends and family, you're going to make it. Take care of each other.
Mm-hmm. So there is a yellow jacket on the camera.
He's blocking it. So when we get older, we're hoping our kids come take care of us too. And I believe they will.
They will. And we got good kids. We got a great family. And we're doing good. Our main goal is to put God first. And He has provided all of this for us. So, anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. And I want to thank Miss Vickie again for letting me join in. And anybody else that wants to join in, please do. And share your story. And I'm sure that you'd be like us and wouldn't have enough time to really put it all out there. But just a little bits and pieces every once in a while is good. 2
hillbillies from Whippoorwill Holler.
I'm glad you said that because I can't even say it. We should have named it something else.
Whippoorwill Holler.
Whippoorwill Holler.
There you go.
I had to say it slowly. But anyways, from our homestead to yours,
God bless.
God bless, and we'll see you guys in another video. Oh.
That's 30 minutes.
If you liked mine and Mr. Brown's story, please go to Miss Vickie and tell her.